Hello, my name is Simon Ambridge and I'm a solutions engineer with DataStax, and today I'm going to show you how to use the Azure Marketplace to deploy a brand new DataStax cluster. The first thing I'm going to do is flip over to my web browser, and I have my browser open at azure.microsoft.com/marketplace. And you can get here by just running a search for Azure Marketplace. So if I search for DataStax here, you can see one comes up, DataStax Enterprise. And this is a solution template. And a solution template is a little different than some of the other offers on the marketplace. Some other offers are virtual machines, and those are VM images already baked with the product installed. DataStax, instead of offering a virtual machine, offers a collection of virtual machines, and these all deploy on the fly. So we start when you hit deploy with Canonical's VM image, installs Java, installs DataStax, and configures the whole thing to be a cluster. So let's get started with that. We click on that, and we get a description of what Cassandra is. So let's hit deploy and go for it. So when I hit deploy, it redirects me to my login for Azure. Now in my case, my login is through DataStax, and we use a third-party single sign-on facility called Okta. But I'll click on my Okta single sign-on DataStax account. It redirects me to Okta single sign-on. I sign in. It redirects me a couple more times. This new portal interface, it can deploy into something called a resource manager, and you can see that down here. So this has redirected me to the Azure Marketplace page for DataStax, specifically the logged in page, which comes after connecting through that single sign-on. If you go directly to portal.azure.com, you can also get here. So let me open up a new tab and show you how to do that. So it logs me in here. And from the portal.azure.com page, if I click the Marketplace tile, and just as we did before, search for DataStax in here. This time you can see it comes back with two entries. The one labeled staged is something that we're moving through QA right now, and you wouldn't be able to see that with your account. So this is the offer, so we're back to the same place. So to actually deploy this, I click the Create button, and it pulls up a new blade, as Azure calls this. So I need to enter in some details, what the username and password will be for the virtual machines that will be provisioned, and this is the Unix level username and password. There's a blacklist of usernames that you can't use, so usernames such as admin or administrator are all banned. So I usually call my user simply DataStax, and then you have to enter in a password, and the password policy requires at least an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a special character like an exclamation point. So I enter my password in, enter it again. You may have a subscription if your organization has an EA, an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. If not, you can sign up for an account yourself, and you'll just need a credit card number. So next up, I need to make a resource group name. The resource group is kind of the container that holds all the different virtual machines and the IP addresses and the network interfaces and so on, all the details that constitute our cluster. We usually recommend deploying a DataStax cluster in its own resource group, and that way it can be managed independently of anything else you might have. For instance, you might deploy the DataStax cluster in one resource group, and you might deploy the web tier that sits in front of that database in another resource group. So I'm going to call mine BenMP1 for Marketplace. You can then deploy. You can choose which region you're going to deploy your cluster into. And this subscription, I think, has 13 different regions available. Depending on which region you choose, there are going to be different machine types available. For instance, I know that West US has some G series machines. So I click OK here. And now a couple of things I need to choose. How many nodes I want. So how about 10? Let's create a 10 node cluster. You can have between 1 and 40 nodes. The reason you can't have more than 40 in the marketplace offer is down to a limitation on the I/O for something called a storage account in Azure. We have a workaround for that limitation. If you choose to deploy outside of the marketplace, using command line tools, you can deploy arbitrarily large clusters, so you're not limited to 40 nodes maximum. Next up, I need to choose what sort of virtual machines I want to use. These three are our recommended virtual machine types. These ones are recommended because, amongst other things, they take up the entire physical box, so there's no chance of any resource contention with any other applications or services, and they're just a very good size for the vast majority, probably 80% or close of the use cases. So if I click View All here, you can see a number of other machines that aren't recommended. The D1 in particular is there, basically just for running deployments and seeing how they work. You can't really run any queries or workloads against it. It's too small, and we don't even recommend it for development purposes. The other machine types are a bit more marginal and maybe possible, but I typically always recommend the D14 V2 as opposed to the standard D14. The D14 V2 is a newer processor that's marginally faster, so I'm going to pick that. So I click OK here, and now it shows what the whole template we've configured looks like. I'm just going to click OK to continue through. It now redirects you to some legal information, including the terms of use that you agree to, both with DataStax and with Microsoft Azure. Just at a high level, this offer is bring your own license. So that license can either be a no-fee, non-production or development license. Alternatively, if you have an existing license with DataStax, then you can use that. So I'm going to hit Create now, and it's going away to build my cluster. And you can see that from the icon there. One neat thing you can do while this is running, we'll just see how long this one takes. It's 4:07 p.m. right now. So I'm going to go over here to resources.azure.com. And if I drill down a bit, I can see my resource groups, and these are various things we have running at the moment. But here we have the resource group we just made, BenMP1. And you can see within that 3 deployments: Ops Center, Nodes, and the main deployment. This is the marketplace wrapper around that, and you can click on those and read about what's going on. This doesn't refresh of its own accord while the deployment's in progress. You have to do that yourself, but you can do this as the deployment runs to see additional things as they come up. Under Compute here, all I have currently is an availability set. It hasn't got around to making the virtual machines yet, but if I hit refresh again, let's see if we got anything else. Yes, here's some virtual machines now. So this is going to build out 10 virtual machines plus an 11th virtual machine. It's a very small one, a standard A1 virtual machine, and that's going to run Ops Center. As you can see, it's just using the standard canonical boot OS image, not a DataStax specific one. So I'm going to flip back here to the portal. As you can see, this is still deploying. At this point, I'm going to pause the recording and we'll come back once this is completed. As I mentioned, we started the deployment at 4:07, so let's keep that in mind and see how long this thing takes. Hello again. So it's now 4:30. 23 minutes have elapsed and I got a message saying that my deployment had completed. So this Ben MP1 panel popped up and it shows all the resources in here. And I can even see more if I click on the dot to get more details displayed, all the things that deployed from our marketplace offer. So the various virtual machines, the NICs for each one, the IP addresses for each. I'm going to click on the Ops Center machine. I actually want the Ops Center IP address. So let me go back down here, load some more, click on the Ops Center IP address, check what that is. Click this icon to copy it. Click to copy that to the clipboard, and we can go and look at that. Another way to get this is to refresh resources.azure.com, and we can also drill down into the IP addresses. Ops Center again, and you can see the Ops Center IP address here as well. Grab that IP address again, open up in a new tab in the browser. So it's the IP address :8888, the 4 8s, and that gives us the landing page for Ops Center. And look at that, we have a cluster running. It's running DataStax 4.8.5. We have 10 nodes, about 7 terabytes of storage available. And if I click over here on this icon, we get a view of the complete cluster, and we can move around and see the various nodes and see some details, and we can double click and drill down into any one of those nodes and see more detail. This one, for example, I'm just going to grab its IP address so we can SSH into it, have a look and see what's in, see what it's doing. But we have a running cluster, it's all healthy, and it's just waiting to do some productive work. So if I go over here now and open up a terminal window, I can SSH to the DataStax user on that IP address, the DataStax user I created earlier, and type in the password that I defined earlier, and it successfully logs me in. So from here I can run, for example, the node tool status command, and that gives me a description of the cluster that we've created. And something else I can do is type CQL-sh and start up a CQL shell and have a look in the database and see what key spaces we have and so forth. So that's a working cluster in 20 some odd minutes. Stay tuned for our next videos on how to deploy from a command line and what to do once you have a running cluster.